there's an issue in the Muslim community that's holding the community back generation by generation. It's almost like a disease in the community that needs to be dealt with. The problem is cousin marriage. The problem is so bad that it affects whole communities and nations, Muslim nations. We're going to talk about it. And here we have a question that someone's asking Zakir Naik, so-called Dr. Zakir Naik. And we're going to see him try to defend Islam by inventing hadith out of thin air. He doesn't want to say the truth, that Islam doesn't protect you from the harms of cousin marriage. Is cousin marriage that bad? We're going to find out. I'm your friendly ex-Muslim. Let's get into it.
My name is Rahul. My first question is, I recently read a report by a doctor saying that because of marriages in first cousins in Islam, it leads to a higher probability of the fetuses being born as handicaps. Yeah, it increases the probability of the babies born without hands or without legs. So if it was something that could potentially cause harm, it should not have been allowed in Islam. Another point I would like to add to the same question is, recently I suffered a little bit of a BP, and I went to the doctor, and the first thing he said to me is that stop eating red meat, which is again allowed in Islam. So I would think that if these things could be harmful to the human body, these should not have been allowed by who has created us. So if you can clarify me on that.
When you listen carefully, you're going to see just how weak his arguments are. Let's continue watching.
The brothers asked two questions. The first question that is talking about consanguineous marriages. Consanguineous marriages means marriage between close relatives. In English it's called as consanguineous marriages. And in consanguineous marriages, medical science tells us today, there are high chances of genetic problems. And I do agree with the brother. So why does Islam permit that?
Yes.
It's clearly mentioned in the Quran in Surah Nisa chapter number 4, verse number 22 to 24, the woman who you can marry and the woman who cannot marry is mentioned there. Amongst them, it's clearly mentioned you cannot marry your sister and a lady cannot marry the brother. It's mentioned. Neither the father, neither the mother. You cannot marry the brother of your father, the ladies, and you cannot marry the sister of your father. That means the important close relatives are mentioned in the Quran. Brother, sister cannot marry. Son and mother, father and daughter, paternal uncle, maternal uncle can't marry.
At this point, we really don't need Islam to tell us not to marry or sleep with our aunties or our daughters or our mothers. Thank you for the beautiful wisdom, Allah. Thanks for the memo. If you're still in this religious mindset, you might wonder, well, what stops you, an atheist, from sleeping with your family members? Well, the same thing that stops most normal humans. We evolved these instincts over millions of years. Most of us don't have such desires unless we're messed up. And those same messed up people will exist in the Muslim community too. They exist in all communities. If you ask most Muslims why they don't do such things, they're not going to say, chapter 26, verse 34 says, it's not lawful for you to sleep with your mother. They're not going to say that's ridiculous. Right? But guess what? First cousin marriage is permissible. It's a type of incest. Islam gives permission, but he says it's a very negligible risk. It's not an issue. Really? But then why is it that a 2013 UK study published in the BMJ, a peer-reviewed medical journal, stated that children born in marriages between first cousins have double the risk of congenital anomalies? Let's look at this blog article in the Science of Biogenetics. Genetic concerns associated with cousin marriages. It's pretty damn bad. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a bit. Common genetic disorders: Down syndrome, cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disease, Tay-Sachs disease, thalassemia, hemophilia. These are all serious issues. Reduced genetic diversity. I can't even, there's so much harm here. So much harm. I actually know an individual in real life that cannot have a baby. He tried to have a baby, but he's married to his cousin, and his parents were married to each cousins, and like it's just awful that they tried and they went for IVF and they're doing all these things. They can't have a baby because of all of these, issues, right? These issues that happen that are like creating problems in the gene pool, right? We need genetic diversity. And when you marry your cousin, especially repeatedly, it gets worse and worse and worse. So, but even if you do it one time, it's still bad. Anyways, let's continue.
That's not what the report said. The report said that because of marriages in first cousins, not your brothers and sisters, it leads to this problem. And it was from a doctor. It was published in Gulf News as well, actually.
Brother, let me complete. Even I'm a doctor.
Okay.
Fine. Even I'm a medical doctor.
Yeah.
It means medical doctor with that doctor.
Yeah.
So brother flexes his medical doctor title, but yet he's actually trying to downplay cousin marriage. What kind of doctor?
The chances in direct relatives are very high.
Yeah.
If a sister and brother marry, the chances are very high.
Yeah.
If a father and daughter are very high. You have read only one report, you haven't read the other report.
Yeah.
So you only read Gulf News, I read medical books. So Gulf News is better or medical books is, brother?
Right,
Which
so
is better?
your point is marrying in first cousins, the
lesser-
chances of getting
lesser-
problem is negligible.
As compared to brother and sister.
As compared to,
Yes, compared to.
But still there is a...
Brother, will you let me complete my answer? Or?
Sorry, yeah, please.
So you have more faith in Gulf News?
No, not really. I'm here to find the truth.
Truth, that's right. So what you realize that consanguineous marriage, and I agreed with you. I didn't say it's not there.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to beat around the bush. But compared, it is negligible. Compared to direct blood brother and sister.
Why is he comparing marrying cousins to marrying your daughter and saying, well, smoking is not that bad, smoking cigarettes, at least it's not cocaine.
I agree that there are medical genetic problems in various ways.
So Zakir Naik is finally admitting that there are problems, genetic problems, but he's downplaying how bad it is. There's an interesting historical tidbit I'm going to share here. Charles Darwin had 10 kids, and because he was married to his first cousin, and of course the repeated cousin marriage to his family, many of them had serious health issues or even died early. His motivations about his children's health issues motivated him to study this, and in the 1870s he collected data on cousin marriages and advocated for population studies to understand their effects. Compare the work of a scientist like him to Muhammad. One actually looks at the evidence and adapted his views for the betterment and protection of humanity. The other was doing whatever personally benefited him, marrying his cousin Zainab, who he fell in love with while she was already married.
But Zaid was not at home. As the wind blew the curtain aside, Prophet Muhammad saw Zainab naked in her chamber.
But this report is there when you have continuously generation after generation. And our beloved Prophet said, according to Dr. Ahmad Sakari says, the Prophet said, do not marry against first cousins generation after generation. If you do it once or twice, it is no problem.
Now, it is true that repeated cousin marriage compounds the issue significantly. First cousins share approximately 12.5% of their DNA. With repeated inbreeding, because that's what it is, the proportion of shared DNA increases well beyond 12.5%, leading to a much greater chance of recessive genes pairing up. Birth defects go up, infant mortality, fertility issues. But this is the first time I've ever heard such a hadith saying this. When I searched it, I couldn't find it, so I decided to fact check this. I looked it up and found the following question where someone else asked for the reference for this exact hadith that Zakir Naik mentioned. So it's not just me who's wondering if this is legit, Muslims too. Sheikh, I saw a YouTube video of Dr. Zakir Naik regarding consanguineous marriage, wherein he quoted Dr. Ahmed Sakr as saying, a beloved Prophet ﷺ said, do not marry generation after generation among first cousins. Sheikh, I want to know whether this hadith is authentic or not. Thank you very much. Answer, we have not come across any scholar who mentioned the hadith that you asked about in question. However, some scholars stated that the hadith that are mentioned about the prohibition of marrying among relatives are not authentic. On the Seeker's Guidance website, they mention the same thing. Regarding these and similar narrations, the 7th century hadith specialist Ibn Salah said, I found no reliable basis for them. Many eminent hadith masters mentioned his statement and concurred, such as Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Ibn Mulakin, and others. So Zakir Naik is straight up lying. He admitted there's a problem with genetic problems caused by cousin marriages and is inventing hadith in order to save his prophet and his religion. Yet they accuse us opponents of Islam of using weak hadith and fabricated statements. Here we have a supposed scholar of Islam whose one job is to know the religion, and he's using a made-up hadith to defend it.
Yet even if you marry not cousins also you can get a problem. Do you know that?
That.
So that doesn't mean that you stop marriage only.
Then he says, even if you don't marry your cousins, you can have genetic issues with your children. This is like embarrassingly stupid logic now. First he said it's not as bad as sleeping with your parents. Now he's saying you can still get issues even without marrying your cousins. This is like getting extremely stupid. Yes, Zakir Naik, there's always a small chance of genetic issues even with non-related marriages. But marrying your cousin repeatedly or even one time increases the risk, doubles the risk in some situations, and is completely preventable suffering, which can have devastating effects on your children's lives. We're talking about something that's completely avoidable. Look, if you knew you could avoid your child having a genetic disease that they suffer with for the rest of their lives, would you avoid it? Let's look at this clip of this Pakistani couple whose children are suffering awful things because they married the cousins.
Mohsin has a rare genetic disease which is gradually destroying his body. He was born with it because his mother and father are first cousins.
Or would you risk their future for no good reason? This is something we now understand, but back then was not understood. Lives can be altered and harmed through cousin marriage, yet it still continues in large numbers in certain Muslim communities. A doctor says smoking causes cancer. But Zakir Naik says, brother, what do you mean? Even if you don't smoke, you can get cancer. Should we all stop smoking? According to ChatGPT, the top countries in the world that have high cousin marriage rates are Pakistan, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, Sudan, South Sudan, Afghanistan, Mauritania, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran. What's in common with all these countries? What do you think will be the result at a country level for all of this inbreeding? In conclusion, if you watched to the end, thank you so much. You've now learned, you've seen the double speak of preachers and scholars. He admitted to the genetic problem but refused to acknowledge it existed in Islam and in the Muslim community. We see the lies that the preachers of Islam, the top preachers of Islam, the famous evangelists that go on TV engage in order to defend the religion, literally making up hadith to make the Prophet look better. The religion doesn't benefit Muslims or warn them from doing harmful things like cousin marriage. We saw that clip. We see how bad it is. In fact, the own Prophet did this and he's supposedly the best man that ever lived. We now know better and we don't need to repeat the same mistakes. Don't stick to a man-made religion like this that'll waste your precious time on earth following rituals and rules that make no sense. Live your life and subscribe to the channel. Join the Patreon and support me. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah Samir signing out.